Namaste and welcome. So today, the focus of this practice is going to be primarily yin, a little bit of movement, yin meaning longer held poses, a little bit of movement towards the beginning of class and then moving into some longer held poses. And the focus today is on the energy of the new moon. Here in the United States, we're coming upon the new moon in Aries in just a day or so. And this is every new moon is something that brings us new intentions, an opportunity to create new intention, to plant seeds. And of course, this is especially true right now that we're coming into the spring season. We just officially went into spring last week. And it's an opportunity as we are turning more inward to plant intentions for what we want to grow over the next month. It could be something big, something that you're really trying to awaken within you that is just one part of it that's going to happen over this next month. Or it could be something very unique to the experience that we're having right now, spending a lot more time at home and really being confronted with how we are, how we naturally show up in times of crisis and uncertainty. You may be recognizing parts of yourself that you no longer serve you, that you're ready to release, and that can be an intention as well. So we're going to start in a seated meditation. I'm purposely only using a blanket as a prop for today's class because I know many of you, or most of you, all of you probably, are doing this practice from home and may not have the blocks or bolsters or other props that we often have in yoga classes. So we make do with what we have. I'll offer some options for modification if needed. So if you want to stop the video now and grab at least one blanket, maybe a blanket and a second blanket, or if you have a prop, I'm sorry, a block, please bring that in. If you want something that is similar to a block, it can even be a water bottle. It's just something to prop your hands on so that when we're in the deeper folds and your hands are not able to touch down on the ground, you have something to rest them on. So coming back and finding your comfortable seat, I recommend that you sit on your blanket, as I am. I have the blanket underneath of me, just underneath the edges of my hips, so that my knees are sitting just a little lower than my hips. So settle into your seat a little bit, maybe spinning the torso around, wiggling the shoulders around, feather your nest, as one of my teachers calls it. Just finding a place where you can really drop into your breath. And once you feel settled, notice the grounding down through your sits bones into the earth. Breathing into your heart, maybe softening your gaze or closing your eyes. And tuning in to the inner landscape, to that place below the surface where your desires and where your true nature lives. Keep deepening the breath and finding a pause at the top of the inhale and the bottom of the exhale. It's a way of arriving more fully right here, right now. I always enjoy reading. Of course, my go-to poet is Rumi. Rumi was a Sufi poet from many centuries ago. And he writes, I'm going to read this, so bear with me. A new moon teaches gradualness and deliberation, and how one gives birth to oneself slowly. Patience with small details makes perfect a large work, like the universe. So understanding what that means for you, that when we're making changes, especially the big changes that are being asked of us right now, we really have to step into a sense of loving kindness and patience and intention. because the old patterns are going to come right back at you and try to take a stand again. So it's just like when you were learning something new for the very first time, learning how to walk or ride a bike or anything, where you had to really be patient and fall and get back up again. So taking 1 or 2 more deep breaths, feeling settled and grounded. And if your eyes are still closed, begin to open them now. And take your hands out by your sides. Turn the palms forward. You're going to gently reach the arms up over your head. You can allow the gaze to go up as well. And when you exhale, you'll drop the right arm down, keeping the left arm lifted, gazing up towards the left elbow as you lean over, feeling a deep stretch through the whole left side of the body. Push down through the right palm to lift yourself back up. Drop the left hand down. Right arm leans over, again bending into the left elbow, gazing up at the right. Inhale both arms back up, and then sweep them down by your sides. This time you'll reach the arms up over your head, gaze goes up as well. Right arm drops down. Lean over for a moment again, finding another stretch, grounding deeper through the left hip. And now lift yourself back up, keep the left arm lifted, straighten the right arm, and then push down through the left palm. So it's not going to touch down on the ground. Pulling the right ear over towards the right shoulder. This is to stretch through the left side of the neck. You can drop the chin down and lift it up, finding an opening and creating a deeper mind-heart connection, helping you to make better decisions for yourself. Lifting and lowering. And then gently bring yourself back to center. Hands just drop gently by your sides. Inhale the arms up. Exhale, the left hand comes down. The right arm rises up and over, gazing up. Finding again the deep stretch through the side body. Now push down through the left palm. Bring the right hand by your side, not touching down onto the mat, but flexing the wrist and bringing the left ear over towards the left shoulder. You can drop your chin down and lift it up, feeling the lengthening in the side of your neck. Creating the possibility for deeper and more profound decision making as you're clearing out all of the gunk, all of the built up energy, the stagnant energy that may build up in the sides of your neck. Now lift the head back up. Both arms reach up over your head. Interlace your fingers. You're not going to be able to see my fingers, but they're interlaced, and then the palms are turning up, reaching them up towards the ceiling, and pull the shoulders down. Now take the hands behind your head, kind of on the nape of your neck actually, and then pull the elbows forward and drop the chin down. Turn the head from side to side. Again, just opening the back of the neck this time. Good. Drop your hands onto your knees, and you'll shift the weight over to the right or to the left to swing the legs behind you. You may want to place the blanket underneath your knees, especially if you're on a hard surface. So just flatten it out in a way that you don't get caught in the bumps of it. Looks like mine's kind of bumped up right now, so bear with me for just a moment. Okay, there we go. Flattened it out. Knees are on top of the blanket. Cat-cow tilts. The belly drops down and the gaze comes up. You'll have your gaze forward. I'm just gazing so that you can see my face and hear my voice a little better. Exhale, rounding the spine, gazing back towards your belly button. So inhale forward and exhale back. Notice the grounding through your hands so that the shoulders engage. Maybe dropping the heart just a little bit so the back flattens before coming and dropping the belly all the way down and bringing the gaze up. And one more time, rounding the spine back, gazing back towards the belly button. And allowing any other movements that you may need in your body. Could be swinging the hips around in a circle. Could be walking the hands a little more forward and really dropping the hips down and swinging them to the right and over to the side. and then to the left and back over to the right. Feeling into the fluidity in your body right now. You can keep the blanket in the middle of your mat. We're not going to be flowing much today, but we are from here going to go into a down dog. So you walk the hands a little more forward, spread the fingers wide, and feel the grounding through the index finger and the thumb knuckle. Then tuck your toes under, push the hips back, and lift them up. Pulling the shoulders away from the ears, grounding through the feet, pedal out the feet. One leg bends, then the other. And then begin to walk your hands back towards the back of your mat, or it could be towards the middle of your mat. I'm going to stay more in the middle so that I'll stay in the range of the camera. Ragdoll, grab opposite elbows and hang forward. You're welcome to keep the knees really bent in this one and allow a little swaying from side to side, like you're hanging over a fence, and the neck is really loosening on this one, shaking and nodding the head, circling the head around, letting it feel really heavy. We're going to take a variation on a crescent moon pose here. What you'll do is keep the hands grabbing opposite elbows in ragdoll. You'll allow the right elbow to come forward so your torso twists over to the left, and then lift the right elbow up to bring yourself all the way up to standing, kind of swirling around, and then dropping the right elbow back down, coming back into your forward fold. Taking it to the second side, so the left elbow comes forward, twisting slightly, lifting all the way up. I know you can't see the top of me when I come all the way up. And then coming back down. It's kind of circling around in one direction and then the other. If this doesn't feel right on your back, try placing your hands on your hips. Let's see if I can back up so you can see a little bit more of me. Placing your hands on your hips and then just turning the hips in one direction and then the other. Again, either here in ragdoll, one more time, the right elbow reaches up as you lean over to the left and allow the arms to swing back down, soften the knees. Left elbow comes forward, swinging around and back down. Now place the blanket again in the middle of your mat if you moved it, and walk yourself forward to downward dog. Pulling the shoulders from the ears, flattening the spine. We're going to lift the right leg up high behind and open the hip. What you may enjoy doing, it feels a little more stable if you bring the left elbow down and walk the right hand a little more forward. Then reach the right leg up high behind you. Bend the knee and stack the knee on top of the hip, gazing back towards the back ankle, maybe circling the leg once or twice, one direction and then the other. Stacking the hip. Open and bend the leg. Now carefully bringing the right leg back down. Come back up onto your hands. And you'll carefully step the right foot between your hands. You may need to grab the back of your calf to help it along and drop the right knee down onto your blanket or onto your mat. So you're going to be pushing the hips forward. Hands are on either side of the front leg. Now this is where you may want to block. If you have a block, you place it behind the front shin and heels of the hands on the block. You can come down onto your knuckles with the thumbs forward, or you can bring the hands just above the knees. Sometimes it's challenging for people to touch all the way down because of the flexibility in their hips. I wanted to offer an option there. Now, this is going to be a timed hold. So I've got the timer going. Again, picking the option that works best for you. You want to also make sure that the ankle sits underneath the knee. So you don't want the foot further back where the knee is in front of the foot. Instead, pull the heel forward and rest the hands just above the knee. You're feeling, where you should be feeling this is in the front of the left hip flexor, the opening the place where the legs initiate walking, the hip flexor. It's where we carry a lot of tension in the body. So that's why we're holding this pose for a longer period of time. You're already almost a minute in. You're doing great. So for those of you who may not be as familiar with this style of yoga, the yin style of yoga, the poses are held for 1 to 3 minutes each. And the reason is to allow the big muscles in the body to settle in and to relax, so that this works more of the ligaments and tendons in the body. It's also a way of working into the meridians in the body. Just like in acupuncture, acupressure, there's certain lines of energy that run through our body. We're working the line of energy that's in the front of the hip, and a lot of the lines of energy crisscross in the back. I'm still learning a lot about the lines of energy, so I don't talk about it a lot, but it is something that I certainly feel, and that's why I really enjoy this style of yoga. I find it releases in a way that I don't get in a class where I'm not holding the poses as long. So give yourself permission to be where you need to be in this pose. Some of you, it may not feel good to have the arms up. You may instead choose to have the hands down. Got about 45 seconds left on this side. You're doing great. Feeling the belly relax a little bit, loosening up any excess tension that's built up. And even focusing on what your intention is for the new moon. That gradual and deliberate incremental shift that you're going to make over the next week. Finding patience, especially with the small details of how you're shifting and changing. Maybe even slowing your yoga practice down as part of your intention. Almost there. We just got 3 seconds left. And now slowly bringing the weight back. You're probably going to feel a little sore already in the front of the left hip flexor. We've got one more pose to do on this side before moving to the next. But before we go into that pose, let's just take the right knee and circle it. Little circles to help loosen up the hip. And now the second pose is going to be a half splits. So I'm going to move my blanket back so that the knee lands actually on the blanket. You want the knee underneath the hip as you lift the right toes off the mat. You may need to scoot them forward a little bit and pull the hip in. We're not going to hold this one quite as long. So settling in, again, you can have either hands down on your knuckles, you can be up on your fingertips. If you're able to balance, it's a little tricky, you can even bring your hands onto your hips. Some of you may want to go into the full splits, walking the right foot even more forward, the left leg back. I would suggest, I don't have the block here, but placing the block underneath your right thigh. There's a lot of time for stillness in this style of yoga. Back into my half splits. You'll notice what shows up. And think of the grounding earth energy. That silvery sliver of a moon, allowing you to plant the seeds that you are going to sow over the next few weeks. Now gently bring the right hand to the inside of the right foot. Bend the right knee and bring it back to meet the left. Sit back, take the knees apart, the big toes together, and sit back on your heels. Walk the hands forward in a child's pose. Forehead down to your mat, or maybe onto a block, or something that elevates your chest up a little bit. You can also place something, the blanket, an extra blanket between your hips and your heels if you're having a hard time allowing the hips to settle in. Elbows can be down or lifted. And just breathe. And slowly lifting the hips off of the heels. Make our way back into a downward dog. Tuck your toes under, ground through your hands, and then lift the hips up and back, downward dog. And as we did on the first side, you'll drop this time the right elbow down to the mat, walk the left hand a little more forward, and lift the left leg up towards the ceiling. You want the shoulders to face down, the underarm to face down, then stacking the left hip on top of the right, bending the left knee, maybe circling the hip in one direction and then the other. Stacking the leg again, bend and straighten the knee. You want to feel the synovial fluid moving around in the hip joint, waking things up. And now bring yourself back to a down dog and step the left foot between your hand. Drop the knee down, the right knee down onto your blanket. Gazing down, making sure the ankle is underneath the knee. Again, either the hands onto the knee, down on either side, up on your knuckles with the thumbs forward. If you're on your fingertips, just be really aware, because you can really bring some strain into your hands if you stay here for a long period of time. So you may choose instead to bring the hand just above the knee. Just relax the shoulders down, elbows by your sides. So there's certainly an energy of initiation going on right now, partly because of this new moon energy that's in the sign of Aries, which is the beginning, the initiator, and partly because we are certainly experiencing a time where things need to be renewed. There is a necessity for us to do things differently, to approach things differently, and to really notice how we can shift and take care of ourselves personally in order to help heal the collective world. It can be a great opportunity. It can be also a great disruptor. If you were happy with the things as they were, it can be quite unsettling to have to think about reinventing or reimagining what's possible. And the uncertainty of not knowing how long this is going to happen with us, how much worse it's going to get, or how much better it's going to get, how quickly can raise things in us and really help us to see what it is that keeps us stuck, so that we can move through it and find a new way. See how we're doing on time? We got less than a minute left. You're doing really great. Again, this time you're opening the right hip flexor, the front of the right thigh. So it's not so much about the leg that you're leaning on, it's more about the back leg. So lifting your chest, relaxing the shoulders down. You got this. Where we are, about 40 seconds left. I want to keep things even on both sides. And there you go, 3 minutes on that side. Now just bring your hands by your sides or maybe up onto your knees, encircling the left knee in one direction and then the other before we move into the half splits or full splits if you choose. So now bringing the hands on either side of the front foot, start to bring the weight over the right knee. So the hip is over the knee, and then scoot the left toes forward and lift them up. You may find rounding in your spine, I know mine certainly does. Pulling the left hip in is the really critical part, and lengthening as much as you can in the spine, but not being overly concerned about the alignment in this one. See how it feels in your body. That's really the critical point. So you can keep the gaze down, again, on your knuckles with the thumbs in front of you. Maybe if you want to go into the full splits, you'll bring the left foot even more forward, take the right leg back. I would recommend placing something, maybe the blanket or a block underneath the left hip. It's really fascinating to me. I had the wonderful opportunity of studying. It was a weekend intensive with Paul and Susie Grilly, who are quite well known in the world of yin yoga. And they talk a lot about just how the bones are created in our body in a spiral when they're created. And so sometimes the bones, like the hip socket, may have a twist in it. And that's why some people are easily able to go into splits or other poses, and others just don't seem like they can ever get there. I know for me, like butterfly pose or cobbler's pose is really challenging. And I see other people whose legs just plop right open. So please know that it's not a matter of what you've done or how flexible you are. It could have a lot to do with simply how you were formed when your bones were being created. So I hope that helps to alleviate any sense of trying to get somewhere, because this type of practice is not about getting anywhere. It's about accepting where you are and really feeling into that. Check on the time here. Oh, we're doing great. Just about 15 more seconds. And bringing the hands to the inside of the left foot, the weight comes over the right knee, and swing the left knee back to meet the right. Sit back again in a child's pose. I recommend taking a wide-legged child's pose again, walking the hands forward and bringing them down onto your mat. Now lifting yourself back up from your down dog, from your child's pose, and we'll be moving back into a downward facing dog. As you come in, before you come into the down dog, however, please move the blanket off to the side. So coming into your down dog, push the hips back, again, rolling the shoulders down away from your ears. Feeling lengthening, pulling the belly in slightly so the low ribs come in. And bring yourself forward to plank pose for a moment. So the weight will come over your wrists, pushing out through your heels and squeezing the inner arms in. You can drop the knees down if you need, still getting the full benefit of the pose. And then either dropping the knees down or bringing the weight further forward, bend your elbows and lower yourself all the way onto your belly. Hands are by your sides. Pull the elbows down by your hips. Gaze in front of you and lift your chest up, low cobra. If you want a little more intensity, you push the tops of the feet down, lift the knees up, and pull the shoulders back, upward dog. Roll over your feet and step back to downward dog. And now you'll come forward again into a plank pose, pushing out through your heels, maybe pushing the heels back a little bit. And this time you'll lower all the way onto your belly. I'm going to turn around here so that you can see the first side of what I'm up to. So you're going to bring yourself onto your elbows. Walk the left elbow a little bit in front of the right. You'll swing the right hand over towards the left elbow, or forearm actually, and bring the inner ankles to touch. One option is to push down through the right hand so you're getting a little bit of a back bend. While you bend the right knee, bring the foot to the outside of your hip. So the elbow is going to point up towards the ceiling. Another option is to bring the left hand across your body and place your forehead on top of the left hand. So we'll be here for a minute. We're being really cautious. If you have challenges with your knees, another option is to roll onto your left side. Keep the knees close together. You can bend the bottom knee and then kick the right foot behind you. So either on your belly or on your side. Tops of the fingers are on the top of your ankle. Feeling a stretch in the quadricep muscle in the front of the leg. Just a few more breaths. You're doing great. Keep the knees close together. Remember to pull the heel to the outside of the hip as the elbow points up towards the ceiling. Oh, just 4 more seconds. You like my fancy way of looking at my watch, tapping my tapping my chin. Okay, now shifting to the second side. So you walk up on your elbows, the right hand comes a little more forward. Bring the inner ankles and the inner knees to touch. Bend the left knee. Reach the left hand back. Now take your right hand across your body. Push up a little bit as you bring the hand to the top of your foot. The elbow points up towards the ceiling. And the foot is being pulled, the heel is being pulled to the outside of your hip. If it's too intense, you can bring that forehead down onto your right forearm. Pushing down with the palm to lift your chest up higher will bring you more of a sense of a back bend. Or again, bringing your forehead down to your forearm will bring more of the stretch into the quadricep. And gently lower the left foot down. One hand on top of the other, forehead down to your hands. Bend your knees and windshield wiper them from side to side. Hands come down to your mat. Lift yourself onto your knees. Walk the knees forward and come to standing. So you're going to take the feet wide, turning the toes out. Dropping into a goddess pose. I promise we will not hold this one for 3 minutes. I'm not even going to turn the timer on. I'm going to go by my best instinct on this one. So what I like to do is have the thumbs on the inside of my knees and the fingertips on the outside, and then drop down into my hips. Now the important thing, I'm going to turn sideways to show you the distinction. Instead of doing this, pull the hips underneath of you so that when you lower down, the back is flatter. So the hands again are on the inside of the knees. The shoulders will come up towards the ears, and you can rock a little bit from side to side. And pulling the hips underneath of you. Feeling a deep opening here in the inner groin muscles. Lengthening in the spine, in the side body. Lower the hips a little lower. Lower the hips even more. Now turn the palms in and see if you can straighten them all the way up towards the ceiling. Rolling the hips underneath of you. This is obviously the yang part of the yin yang practice. Now straightening with the arms and the legs. Star pose, lifting the heart, fingers are nice and bright. Hands come onto your hips, Turn the toes in and the heels out. Wide-legged forward fold. So with your hands on your hips and a flat back, you'll fold yourself all the way forward. When you come down as far as you can, drop your hands down to the mat. Have the fingertips even with the tops of your feet. And then bring the crown of the head down. Really take the feet wider than you are comfortable with, but turn the toes in slightly so that you can push through the outside edges of your feet to ground you into your mat. You want to feel like you're almost going to roll forward into a somersault and opening into the back of the legs. So we'll be here for 2 minutes. Pushing the heels of your hands forward to encourage the weight to come more into the balls of the feet. Loosening the neck, especially if your head isn't touching down. If your head does touch down and you want to take this a little further, grab the outside of your ankles, bend your elbows and pull the torso closer in towards your thighs. Notice the points of contact on the floor and how it grounds you into the earth. Again, bringing in that energy of renewal, of growth, of connection, and of possibilities. Less than a minute left. How can you adjust to feel fuller and more deeply into your pose? Perhaps now grabbing the outside of your ankles or grabbing opposite ankle, grabbing the left ankle or the left shin with your right hand, lifting the left arm up, pulling the hips to the right, finding a twist. Dropping the left hand down, straightening your back, and now taking the left hand outside of the right shin, reaching the right arm up. Both hands back down. Flatten your spine. Heel toe the feet a little closer together. Turn the toes out, and guess where we're going? Back into goddess squat. So drop down into your hips. This time the hands by your sides. Rolling a little bit from side to side. Rocking a little bit from side to side. Now bring the hands down onto your knees. Drop the hips down. Keep the arms straight, and you'll push into the right inside of the knee as you straighten the arm and drop the shoulder down and gaze over the left. Shifting to the second side, dropping the left shoulder down, gazing over the right. And back through center, lower the hips, reach the arms up over your head, and come all the way to standing, hands down by your sides. And now we'll be finishing out the rest of this sequence back down on our mats. So please have your blanket, and you may want to actually fold the blanket over and make it thin like this, so kind of a cylindrical shape. Start first by placing the blanket underneath your hips. I'm going to take a forward fold from here. So take the legs a little wide, maybe a little wider than your hips. And then gently folding forward over the legs. Remembering there's no place you need to get in this pose. Just allowing, again, that sense of grounding that comes with a forward fold, the turning inward. your neck to relax or turn it from side to side. In yin style of yoga, this is called caterpillar pose. And I really like that name, especially as we talk about within the context of a new moon, as you know, a caterpillar is waiting to become its true self, a butterfly. So it's forming and going back into the chrysalis in order to transform and transmute into the beauty of the butterfly within it. And this time of the new moon is about setting those intentions about how you are going to transmute your own self and become a fuller version of who you are. We have just about a minute left on this one. Deep breath into the back of the body and see if you can sink a little deeper. Maybe the hands can fall to the outside of the thighs now. Just about 10 more seconds. We're not going to hold this one super long. So begin to walk your hands back and lift your chest up. Now the next pose is saddle pose. It looks quite similar and can often feel quite similar to hero's pose. If you have any challenges with your knees, you may want to skip this one or come onto your belly, and similar to what we were doing earlier with bending one knee out to the behind you, take one leg out to the side and hands down. Another option, if you're coming into the full version of the pose, the yin version of this pose, you'll bring the big toes together and the knees wide. Walk yourself a little further towards the top of your mat, and then turn your blanket so it's lengthwise. Or if you know you're only going to be, actually, if you're seated on your heels, you'll turn the blanket so it's the same width as your mat. Lift the hips up and move them a little bit in front of the heels, and see if you can drop your forearms down to the mat. If your knees are lifting up off the mat, that means you've probably gone too far, so you'll want to lift yourself back up onto your hands. Some of you have the flexibility to be able to come all the way down. I would not recommend, however, if you're coming all the way down onto your back, to have the feet together and the knees apart. I would shift instead to having the knees together and the feet apart, and either sit down. This is where you would turn the blanket lengthwise and tuck the blanket underneath the edges of your hips. Come down onto your forearms. You have to be really careful with your neck, so keep the gaze in front of you. Or perhaps, if you have the availability, to come all the way down onto your back and grab opposite elbows. So that should give you plenty of options in this pose. Got the timer going. This is the final pose before coming into a well-deserved shavasana. This has been a session quite heavy on hip openers and grounding into the earth. So taking the time and the version of the posture that works best for you. I've got you. I've got the timer going. I think we're about halfway through already. Yes, we are. So only about a minute and a half left. And it's often when staying in the poses for a little longer when you finally feel the release that you seek. So as the intensity builds up, see if you can breathe down into it. Again, turning your head in any way that you need to soothe and loosen the neck. A few more breaths. Sometimes it feels good to let out a big sigh and let some air out through your mouth, maybe even sticking your tongue out, going ah, opening up all of the channels. There's a nerve, the vagus nerve, that runs all the way through the center of the body. And so you're kind of clearing and cleansing that out through your voice. About 30 more seconds. You're doing well. So carefully, mindfully, bringing the elbows down, chin tucks into the chest, lift your chest back up, bring the hands in front of you, and scoot your blanket off to the side. Feels good for me after that pose to either stretch one leg at a time behind me or straighten both legs and lift up for a downward dog. Getting rid of any stagnant energy that may have built up while you're in this pose. And now making your way down into a Shavasana. Drop the knees down, swing the legs to one side. Come down onto your back. You may enjoy taking the blanket that's already been folded over and pulling it right up underneath the back of your hips. It's a little different sensation than having it behind the knees. And turn the toes out, let them splay out to the sides, all the way down onto your back, and close your eyes. Feeling all the transformation, all the opening that occurred in your practice. There's just nothing left to do. This is your time to be. I'll call you back when it's time. We'll just be here for 2 minutes. You're, of course, welcome to stay longer if you have the time and want to really ground into your practice. Begin to start to lengthen your breath, bringing some reawakening movements into your fingers and your toes, your wrists and your ankles, maybe turning your head from side to side, loosening your jaw, feeling settled, more connected and grounded because of your practice. And roll yourself onto your right side, pulling the knees into your chest. Breathe into your heart space, remembering the intention, your new moon intention, what you are cultivating over this next few weeks. Something that has meaning for you, something that feels like a new possibility. And allowing that to be nourished and cultivated within you. And gently bring yourself back to your seated position. Hands cupped over the top of your knees. Now turn the palms to face forward as we started. Inhale, reach the arms up over your head. Let the gaze rise up as well. And exhale, bring the hands back to your heart. Gazing down at your fingertips or closing your eyes. A nice deep breath in through your nose. Exhaling it out through your mouth. One more time, in through your nose. Out through your mouth. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be safe from both inner and outer dangers. May you be well in body and mind. May you be happy and live with ease. Namaste. Thank you. And until next time, be well.